The coffee shop smelled like fresh bread and morning dreams. Jake sat in his usual corner, laptop open, pretending to work on a client's logo design. But his eyes kept drifting to the line of customers waiting for their daily fuel. The autumn rain tapped against the windows, creating a cozy bubble inside the small cafe. That's when he first saw her. She was talking to her friend near the counter, her hands moving like she was painting pictures in the air. Her laugh was the kind that made other people smile without knowing why. Jake found himself listening, even though he couldn't hear the words. Something about a nature documentary and how amazing it was to see dolphins swimming in the deep ocean. They just looked so free, she was saying, her voice carrying that spark people have when they talk about things they love. Jake had been coming to this coffee shop for 3 years. Same table, same order, same routine. He liked the predictability of it all. But watching this woman, he felt something shift inside him. Like when you've been walking uphill for so long that you forget what flat ground feels like. She ordered a simple coffee, black, which surprised him. Most people her age seemed to want complicated drinks with 5 different ingredients. When the barista handed her the cup, she smiled and said thank you like she really meant it. Not the quick, polite kind of thanks, but the genuine kind that made the tired-looking barista smile back. Jake tried to focus on his work, but his computer screen might as well have been showing a blank wall. He kept glancing up, watching how she moved through the space. She didn't rush like everyone else. She seemed to actually be present in each moment, noticing things other people missed. Her friend left after finishing her drink, but she stayed. She pulled out a thick book and settled into a chair 2 tables away from Jake. The cover was worn, like she'd read it many times before. Jake squinted to see the title and felt his heart skip. It was one of his favorite books, something most people had never heard of. For 20 minutes, he debated with himself. Should he say something? What if she thought he was weird? What if she was just being polite? But then she laughed at something in the book, a soft chuckle that made Jake's chest feel warm. He was still arguing with himself when she got up to get another coffee. On her way back, she accidentally bumped into him as he stood to stretch. Her coffee splashed a little, but she didn't seem upset. "Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry," she said, grabbing napkins from his table. "I wasn't watching where I was going. Are you okay?" "I'm fine," Jake said, probably too quickly. "Don't worry about it." But she was already dabbing at a small coffee spot on his sleeve. "I'm such a klutz sometimes. My friends always say I live in my own little world. That's not necessarily a bad thing," Jake heard himself saying. "The real world can be pretty overwhelming." She looked up at him then, really looked at him, and Jake felt like he was seeing color for the first time. Her eyes were curious, kind, like she was genuinely interested in what he had to say. "That's very true," she said. "I'm Luna, by the way, Jake. Nice to meet you, Jake." She glanced at his table, where his laptop was still open. "Are you working on something interesting?" "Just a logo design," he said, then felt stupid for making it sound so boring. "That's cool. I love creative stuff. I'm terrible at it, but I love seeing what other people can do." She paused, seeming to notice something. "Hey, is that book any good?" She pointed to his table, where he'd left his copy of the same book she'd been reading. Jake felt his face warm up. "You're reading it too?" "Yes, I've probably read it 5 times. Nobody ever knows what I'm talking about when I mention it. Most people think it's too slow," Jake said, relaxing a little. "But I think that's the point. It's supposed to feel like real life." Luna's face lit up. "Exactly. Real life isn't all action and drama. It's mostly quiet moments and small observations. This author gets that." And just like that, they were talking. Not the awkward small talk Jake usually struggled with, but real conversation. Luna told him about other books she loved, places she wanted to visit, how she'd gotten into reading. In the first place, she was a nurse at the local hospital, working night shifts, which explained why she was free on a Tuesday morning. "I love what I do," she said, "but it can be heavy sometimes. People on their worst days, you know. Books help me remember that there's beauty in the world too." Jake found himself telling her things he rarely shared with anyone about his art, his dream of maybe doing something bigger than corporate logos, how he gotten into design in the first place. Usually, he felt silly talking about his creative ambitions, but Luna listened like it was the most interesting thing in the world. "You should totally go for it," she said when he mentioned wanting to try more personal projects. "Life's too short to play it safe all the time." They talked for over an hour without Jake realizing it. It felt like minutes. When Luna finally looked at her phone, she made a little surprised sound. "I should probably head home and get some sleep before my shift tonight," she said, but she didn't sound like she really wanted to leave. "Yeah, of course," Jake said, trying not to sound disappointed. Luna gathered her things, then paused. "This might be forward, but would you maybe want to grab coffee again sometime? I mean, we're both here pretty regularly, right?" Jake's heart did something that felt like floating. "I'd really like that." "Great," she smiled, and Jake felt like he could run a marathon. "Same time tomorrow. I'll be here." After she left, Jake sat in the quiet coffee shop, staring at his laptop screen. But instead of logos and client work, he found himself sketching random doodles at first, then more focused drawings, a woman laughing, hands moving through air, the way sunlight looked when it caught someone's smile. For the first time in months, maybe years, Jake felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be, like he'd been carrying around a weight he didn't even know was there, and someone had just lifted it off his shoulders. He closed his laptop and walked out into the rain, but somehow, he didn't feel wet at all. 3 months had passed since that first coffee shop meeting, and Jake's life had completely changed, not in dramatic ways, but in small, beautiful moments that made everything feel brighter. Luna had become part of his daily routine, but the good kind of routine that felt like adventure. Every Tuesday and Thursday, they met for coffee before her night shifts. She'd arrive with stories from the hospital, funny things patients had said, or touching moments that reminded her why she loved being a nurse. Jake looked forward to these stories more than anything else in his week. There was this elderly man. "Yesterday," Luna said one morning, stirring her black coffee, "he was scared about his surgery, so I sat with him for a few minutes. He told me about his garden and how he was worried his tomatoes wouldn't grow right without him there to tend them." "What did you tell him?" Jake asked, already knowing Luna would have found the perfect words. "I told him that gardens are stronger than we think. Sometimes they need time to grow on their own." She smiled. He seemed to feel better after that. Jake loved how Luna saw the world. She found meaning in everything, hope in the smallest moments. Being around her made him feel like he was seeing life through different eyes. Colors seemed more vivid, sounds more musical. Even his morning walks to the coffee shop felt like small adventures. One Saturday, Luna showed up at his apartment with a backpack and a mysterious smile. "I want to show you something," she said. "Do you trust me?" Jake didn't even hesitate, of course. She led him through parts of town he'd never explored, past the tourist areas, down winding streets that felt like secrets. They walked for almost an hour, talking about everything and nothing. Luna had this way of making ordinary conversations feel important. "I found this place during my first week in town," she said as they climbed a small hill. "I was feeling homesick and just started walking." Sometimes the best discoveries happen when you're not looking for anything specific. At the top of the hill was an old lighthouse, not the famous one tourists visited, but a smaller, forgotten one surrounded by wildflowers. The view overlooked the entire coastline, and Jake felt his breath catch. "It's beautiful," he said. "I come here when I need to think," Luna said, sitting on a patch of grass, "or when I need to remember how big the world is." They spent the afternoon there, talking about dreams they'd never shared with anyone. Luna wanted to travel to places she'd only read about in books. Jake admitted he'd always wanted to create art. That meant something, not just logos for companies. "Why don't you?" Luna asked, like it was the simplest question in the world. "I don't know," Jake said. "Fear, maybe. What if I'm not good enough?" "What if you are?" Luna replied. What if you're amazing and you just don't know it yet? The way she said it made Jake believe it might be true. Luna had this gift for seeing potential in everything, especially in him. She made him feel like he could do anything. Over the following weeks, Luna introduced Jake to her world. She took him to a tiny bookstore hidden between a laundromat and a flower shop. The owner, an elderly woman named Mrs. Chen, knew Luna by name and recommended books like she was prescribing medicine. Luna brings interesting people here, Mrs. Chen told Jake with a knowing smile. She has good instincts about humans. They spent hours in that bookstore, reading passages to each other, discovering new authors, sharing opinions about stories. Jake realized he'd been living in a very small world before Luna came along. Luna also got him to try new things. She convinced him to take a pottery class at the community center, even though he insisted he was terrible with his hands. Turns out, he wasn't bad at all. In fact, the instructor asked if he'd ever considered teaching art classes. See? Luna said as they walked home, both covered in clay. You're full of surprises. Jake started creating again, really creating. Not just work projects, but personal art that came from somewhere deep inside him. He painted scenes from their adventures, sketched moments that felt too precious to forget. Luna was always encouraging, always excited to see what he made. You should apply for that position at the art center, she said one evening as they looked through his new paintings. I saw they're looking for someone to teach community classes. I don't know if I'm qualified, Jake said. You're more qualified than you think, Luna said firmly. Besides, what's the worst that could happen? They say no, and you're exactly where you are now. But what if they say yes? Luna's optimism was infectious. She made everything seem possible. When Jake felt doubtful, she reminded him of his strengths. When he got scared, she helped him find courage. She didn't push him, but she believed in him so completely that he started believing in himself too. One evening, after a particularly good day at the pottery class, Jake realized something that made his heart race. He was falling in love with Luna, not the desperate, needy kind of love he'd felt before with other people, but something deeper. She made him feel like the best version of himself. Thank you, he said as they walked along the beach near the lighthouse. For what? Luna asked. For showing me all these amazing places. For getting me to try new things. For making me feel like I can do anything. Luna stopped walking and looked at him with those kind, curious eyes. You could always do anything. Jake, I just helped you remember. As they stood there on the beach, watching the sunset paint the sky in impossible colors, Jake felt like he was floating. Not just happy, but weightless. Like all the heavy things he'd been carrying around for years had suddenly disappeared. Luna took his hand, and Jake thought this must be what people meant when they talked about finding their person. Someone who made the world bigger, brighter, more full of possibility. He squeezed her hand and smiled, feeling like he could fly. 6 months into their relationship, Jake's apartment didn't feel like his anymore. Not in a bad way. At least not at first. Luna's things had slowly found their way into every corner. Her nursing scrubs hung next to his clothes, her favorite. Mugs sat in his kitchen cabinet, and her books filled the empty spaces on his shelves. It felt nice having her around so much. Coming home to someone who was genuinely excited to see him was something Jake had never experienced before. Luna would greet him with stories from work, questions about his day, and plans for their evening together. I picked up groceries, she'd say, already unpacking bags in his kitchen. I thought we could try that new recipe I found online. It's supposed to be really healthy. Jake appreciated her thoughtfulness, but he noticed she'd stopped asking if he wanted to try new recipes. She just assumed he would. Small things like that started happening more often. When the art center position opened up, Luna was more excited than Jake was. She helped him prepare his application, staying up late to organize his portfolio and practice interview questions. With him, you're going to be amazing, she kept saying. This is exactly what you need to take your art to the next level. Jake wasn't even sure he wanted the job. Teaching felt scary, and he liked the freedom of freelance work. But Luna's enthusiasm was hard to resist. She made it sound like this opportunity would solve all his problems. The interview didn't go well. Jake felt nervous and unprepared, even with all of Luna's coaching. The director was polite, but seemed more interested in someone with formal teaching experience. When Jake got the rejection email 2 days later, he felt relieved more than disappointed. Luna, however, was crushed. "I don't understand," she said, pacing around his living room. "Your work is beautiful. You would have been perfect for that job." "Maybe I just wasn't ready," Jake said, trying to comfort her. "No, they made a mistake. You should call them back, ask for feedback. Maybe there's another position coming up." Jake watched Luna get more upset about his rejection than he was, and it made him feel strange, like his failure was somehow her failure too. He'd been looking forward to a quiet evening, maybe working on a personal project. But Luna had other plans. "We need to figure out what went wrong," she said, pulling out her laptop. "I'm going to research other opportunities. There has to be something better out there." Without asking, Luna started applying for jobs on Jake's behalf. She found art teacher positions in nearby towns, gallery assistant roles, even a curator position that required experience Jake didn't have. Every morning, she'd show him new applications she'd started, forms she'd filled out, networking events she'd signed them up for. "I'm just trying to help," she said when Jake mentioned feeling overwhelmed. "I believe in you more than you believe in yourself." That phrase started coming up a lot. Whenever Jake hesitated about something Luna thought he should do, she'd say she believed in him more than he believed in himself. It sounded supportive, but it made Jake feel like his own instincts were wrong. Luna began reorganizing his apartment to be more conducive to creativity. She rearranged his art supplies, bought him new brushes and canvases, and created a designated workspace in his bedroom. She threw away sketches she thought were too negative and put up inspirational quotes on his walls. "I'm making this space work better for you," she explained. "Artists need the right environment to flourish." Jake came home one day to find Luna had scheduled him for a networking mixer without asking. She'd already RSVP'd and picked out clothes for him to wear. "It's next Friday," she said excitedly. "I met this woman at the hospital whose husband works in graphic design. She said he'd love to meet you. This could be exactly what you need, Luna." "I don't really like networking events," Jake said carefully. "That's because you've never been to the right ones. This one is different. It's more casual, more focused on real connections." Jake felt trapped. How could he argue with someone who was trying so hard to help him? But Luna's help was starting to feel less like support and more like pressure. She began finishing his sentences when they were out with friends. When someone asked Jake about his work, Luna would jump in with stories about his incredible talent and upcoming opportunities. She meant well, but Jake felt like he was disappearing behind her version of who he should be. The worst part was that Luna seemed to grow more confident as Jake felt smaller. She talked about their future like it was already decided. They would move to a bigger apartment. Jake would get a teaching position. They'd travel together once his career took off. "I've been thinking," she said one evening as they cooked dinner together. "We should start looking at places closer to downtown. It would be better for your career. And I could bike to work." Jake asked. "Well, yes. I mean, we're practically living together already. It makes sense to make it official." Jake realized Luna had been planning their entire future without really asking what he wanted. She'd been so focused on helping him become successful that she'd forgotten to check if her version of success was something he actually wanted. "I need some time to think about all this," Jake said. Luna's face fell. "Think about what?" "I thought we were happy. I thought you wanted to grow together." "I do. But I feel like I'm drowning in all these plans and expectations. I need to breathe." "I'm just trying to help you reach your potential," Luna said, her voice getting tight. "I see how amazing you could be, and I want to help you get there. But what if I'm okay with where I'm right now?" Luna looked at him like he'd said something crazy. Nobody should be okay with staying in the same place forever. That's not growth. That's not living. That night, Jake lay awake thinking about how the woman who had made him feel weightless was now making him feel like he was sinking. He loved Luna, But he was starting to lose himself in her vision of who he should become. The woman who had encouraged him to fly was now holding him so tightly that he couldn't spread his wings. The breaking point came on a Sunday afternoon at Luna's family house. Jake had been dreading this dinner for weeks, but Luna was so excited to introduce him to everyone that he couldn't find a way to say no. "They're going to love you," Luna said, as they walked up the front steps. "I've told them so much about your art and your plans." Jake's stomach twisted. What plans? He didn't remember making any definite plans. But Luna seemed to have a whole story ready about his future. Luna's family was warm and welcoming. Exactly the kind of people Jake usually felt comfortable around. Her mom hugged him like they were old friends. Her dad shook his hand firmly. And her younger brother immediately started asking about his favorite video games. But as soon as they sat down for dinner, something felt wrong. When Luna's mom asked Jake about his work, Luna jumped in before he could answer. "Jake's an incredibly talented artist," she said. "He's working on transitioning from commercial design to fine art. He just applied for several teaching positions." Jake opened his mouth to clarify, but Luna kept talking. "He's also planning to have his first gallery showing next year. I've been helping him organize his portfolio." "That sounds wonderful," Luna's dad said, looking at Jake. "What kind of art do you focus on?" Again, Luna answered. "He does these amazing paintings of everyday moments, really emotional stuff. He's particularly good at capturing human connection." Jake felt like he was watching someone else's life being described. Yes, he painted, but he'd never committed to a gallery showing. He'd never said he wanted to transition away from design work completely. These were Luna's dreams for him, not his own dreams. Actually, Jake tried to say, "I'm not sure about the gallery thing yet." "Oh, he's just being modest," Luna said with a laugh. "He doesn't like to talk about his plans before they're finalized." The conversation continued like this all evening. Every time someone asked Jake a direct question, Luna would either answer for him or correct his response. When he mentioned enjoying his current freelance work, she quickly added that it was just temporary while he builds his fine art career. Jake felt himself getting smaller and smaller in his chair. Luna seemed to expand in her family's presence, becoming more animated and confident. While Jake felt like he was disappearing. After dinner, Luna's mom pulled out old photo albums. "I want to show Jake some pictures of Luna when she was little," she said. As they flipped through pages, Luna kept narrating, telling stories Jake had never heard before. But what bothered him wasn't the stories themselves. It was how Luna kept speaking for him about his reactions. "Look at his face. He thinks that's so cute," she'd say before Jake had even looked at the photo. "He loves hearing about my childhood. He's always asking me to tell him more stories." Jake realized he'd barely spoken all evening. Not because he didn't want to, but because Luna kept filling every silence, answering every question, explaining every pause. On the drive home, Luna was glowing. "That went so well," she said. "They absolutely love you. Mom said she's never seen me so happy." "I barely said anything," Jake pointed out. "What do you mean? You were great. You just let me help guide the conversation. That's what couples do. They support each other." Jake felt exhausted. "Luna, you answered every question before I could. You told them about plans I never made. You made me feel like a prop in my own introduction." Luna looked genuinely confused. "I was trying to help you. I know you get nervous in new situations, so I thought I'd make it easier for you. But I wasn't nervous. I was fine until you started speaking for me. I wasn't speaking for you. I was sharing our plans, the things we've talked about. Those aren't our plans. Those are your plans for me." The argument that followed was the worst they'd ever had. Luna couldn't understand why Jake was upset about her support, and Jake couldn't explain why her help felt like suffocation without sounding ungrateful. When they got back to Jake's apartment, Luna immediately started tidying up. She'd been doing this more often lately, reorganizing his space without asking. Today, she'd gone through his art supplies while he was showering that morning. "I threw away some of those old sketches," she said casually. "The ones with all the dark, heavy imagery. They weren't really representative of your current style anyway. Jake felt his heart stop. Which sketches? The ones in the black folder. They were just bringing negative energy into your workspace. Jake rushed to his desk. The black folder had contained some of his most personal work. Drawings he made during difficult times in his life. They weren't pretty, but they were real. Honest expressions of what he'd been feeling. "Luna, those were important to me," he said, his voice shaking. "They were just old sketches. You're in a much better place now. You don't need to hold onto things that remind you of darker times. That's not your decision to make. I'm trying to help you move forward. Sometimes we need someone else to help us let go of things that hold us back." Jake felt something break. Inside him, "You threw away my work without asking me. You speak for me like I can't speak for myself. You make plans for my life without checking if I want those plans." Luna's face crumpled. "I love you. Everything I do is because I love you and I want to help you become the best version of yourself. But what if I like myself the way I am? What if I don't need to become a different version of myself? Everyone needs to grow. Everyone needs to improve. If you're not moving forward, you're moving backward." Jake realized they were talking about two completely different things. Luna saw love as improvement, as helping someone become better. But Jake was starting to understand that real love meant accepting someone as they were, not trying to change them into who you thought they should be. "I need some space," he said quietly. "Space from what? From me trying to help you? From me caring about your future? From feeling like I'm drowning in your vision of who I should be?" Luna stared at him for a long moment, tears starting to form in her eyes. "I thought we were building something together. I thought we were a team. We were. But somewhere along the way, you became the coach and I became the project." The silence that followed felt heavy, like the air before a storm. Jake could see Luna trying to understand. But her confusion was genuine. She really believed she was helping. She really thought her love was lifting him up. But Jake felt like he was being buried alive under the weight of her expectations. 2 weeks passed without a word between them. Jake had never experienced silence like this. Not angry silence, but the kind of quiet that comes when two people who love each other realize they don't know how to love each other properly. Jake spent those days thinking, really thinking, for the first time in months. He walked through town alone, visited the bookstore Mrs. Chen owned, sat in the coffee shop where he'd first met Luna. Everything reminded him of her, but it also reminded him of who he'd been before. He started drawing again, but differently. This time, not the hopeful, bright paintings Luna had encouraged, and not the dark sketches she'd thrown away, just honest drawings of how he felt, confused, grateful, hurt, missing someone while also needing space from them. On day 10, Jake got a text from Luna. "Can we talk?" They met at the lighthouse where she'd first taken him. It felt like the right place, somewhere that had been important to both of them before things got complicated. Luna looked tired, like she hadn't been sleeping well. "I've been thinking about what you said," she began, "about feeling like you were drowning." Jake waited, not sure what to say. "I talked to my mom about it. She said something that really hit me. She said sometimes we love people so much that we forget to let them be themselves." "Luna, I know you were trying to help, but that's just it," Luna said, sitting down on the grass. "I thought helping meant fixing. I thought loving someone meant seeing their potential and pushing them toward it. But I never asked if you wanted to be pushed." Jake sat beside her, careful to leave some space between them. "I did want to grow. I just wanted to grow at my own pace, in my own direction. I know that now. I've been seeing a counselor this week, just to talk through some things." Luna looked out at the ocean. "She helped me realize that I've been doing this my whole life, in relationships, with friends. Even at work sometimes, I see what I think people need, and I just take over." "You mean well," Jake said softly. "But meaning well isn't enough, is it? I made you feel small when I was trying to make you feel big. I made you feel trapped when I was trying to help you feel free." They sat in silence for a while, watching the waves. Jake felt that familiar sense of peace he'd always felt with Luna. But it was different now, less overwhelming, more gentle. "I miss you," Luna said eventually. "I miss you too. But I also needed this space. I needed to remember who I was before we got together. Did you? Remember, I mean, Jake smiled a little. Yeah, I did. And I also figured out who I want to become. Not who I should become, but who I want to become. Tell me, I want to keep doing design work because I actually enjoy it. I want to paint when I feel like painting, not because I have to. I want to try new things, but only if they interest me, not because they're good for my career. Luna nodded. That sounds like you. I also want to try being in a relationship where we both get to be ourselves, where we support each other without trying to change each other. Luna looked at him hopefully. Do you think we could learn how to do that? Jake thought about it. I think we could try, but it would have to be different this time. We both have to change how we do things. What would that look like? Well, you'd have to let me make my own decisions, even if you think I'm making the wrong ones. And I'd have to speak up when something bothers me instead of just going along with it. That sounds scary, Luna admitted. Yeah, it does. But maybe good relationships are supposed to be a little scary. Maybe that's how you know you're really being yourself with someone. They decided to try again. But slowly, Luna moved back to her own apartment. And they started dating again like they had in the beginning. Coffee dates, long walks, sharing books and ideas. But with new rules, Luna practiced asking instead of assuming. Would you like to try that new restaurant instead of I made us reservations? Jake practiced being honest about his feelings. I'd rather stay in tonight instead of just going along with plans. He didn't want that. It was awkward at first. They had to learn new ways of communicating, new ways of being together. Sometimes Luna would catch herself mid-sentence, about to make plans for Jake without asking. Sometimes Jake would agree to something he didn't want, then have to backtrack and be honest about his feelings. But slowly, they found the rhythm. Luna learned to love Jake's contentment with his current life instead of always pushing for change. Jake learned to share his dreams without feeling pressure to pursue them immediately. 3 months into their second attempt, Jake got offered a freelance project that would take him to another city for 3 months. His first instinct was to worry about Luna's reaction. That sounds amazing, Luna said when he told her. What an opportunity. But what about us? What about our relationship? Luna smiled. We'll figure it out. Maybe I can visit sometimes. Maybe we'll learn that we're stronger than we thought. Jake realized this was the difference before. Luna would have either tried to talk him out of it or would have started planning how to make it work for both of them. Now, she was supporting his choice without trying to control the outcome. What if I want to take it? Jake asked. Then you should take it. I'll miss you, but I'll be proud of you too. What if I don't want to take it? Then you shouldn't either. Wei, it's your choice. Jake felt that weightless feeling again, but it was different now. Before, Luna had made him feel weightless by lifting him up with her dreams and expectations. Now, he felt weightless because she was giving him the freedom to make his own choices. I think I want to take it, he said. Then you should. They talked about it for hours, making plans for visits, discussing how they'd stay connected, acknowledging that it would be hard but also exciting. Luna didn't try to solve every problem or plan every detail. She just listened and supported, and trusted that they'd figure it out together. As they walked back to their cars, Jake realized something important. The woman who had once made him feel like he was drowning was now teaching him how to swim, not by pulling him to shore, but by believing he was strong enough to stay afloat on his own. Luna had learned to love him without trying to change him, and Jake had learned to love her without losing himself in the process. They were both still the same people who had fallen in love in a coffee shop, but they were also different, better at being themselves, better at being together. The weightless feeling was still there, but now it felt like flying instead of falling.